بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. This is the second revision of traveller1 English, first year module 2 and 3. Now in this module number 2, you're going to be able to use the present perfect simple. You're going to write a story or write an email giving news. In module 3, we're going to express ability, obligation, and lack of obligation. We're going to ask for information using indirect questions. We're going to make comparisons and write an email asking for information, write a description of a place. Now, during this revision, we're going to have two techniques using a table. You're going to see it now. That will summarize or analyze the whole module, so it's easier for you to follow. If you skip one of the lessons, for example, or if you want more information, you can find the exact name in that page and an organizer for some of the roles that we will present, inshallah. Now, in this module, it's very clear here that, as you can see, each title, like if you want to know the present perfect in which page, or for example, indirect questions and comparisons, because we're going to have them on the pages one by one. So it's easier for you to follow. You can take a photograph of this one or you can write it down. Of course, it's in your book, but this is just a reminder. This is also for the writing part for both modules. You're supposed to write 4 paragraphs. Well, not paragraphs, 2 paragraphs and 2 emails. So be careful with that. Okay. Now, let's start our revision by talking about the compounds. Now, I put it in a table. As I said, it's easier for you to take a photograph or write, because when you put it in a table, it's going to be, you will remember most of the information. You have it in your book. Of course, in your grammar reference, page 86, starting from page 86, but this is just a summary for you. If you want to use some or no or every or any with people, you say somebody, nobody, everybody, and anybody. If it's with things, something, nothing, everything, and anything. If it's for place, you say somewhere, nowhere, everywhere, and anywhere. How do you use it? Usually, when you use some, it's for affirmative, which is sentences. If it's nobody, you can also use it for sentences and everybody, but be careful with anybody, anywhere, anything. It's used for questions and for negative. Okay, I'm sure it's very clear. I'm going to leave this just for a second if you want to take a photograph. Now, moving on to the present perfect simple. I put it in an organizer. Of course, you have it in your book as a table, but this is easier for you to remember. Present perfect. Okay, and it's simple. The present perfect, you have or has, and you have the past participle, the third verb of the list, or the ed for the regular. And you have here many examples. Of course, also in your book you have other examples. Just just an example: I have worked or I have brought. The question will be: have you brought or have you worked? If it's negative, I haven't worked or I haven't brought. Of course, because I can't write all the sentence, so it's like tucked in. You will find worked and brought in the third line, but it's used for all pronouns. Okay, and you can also write like your own information, like pp, like past participle here, so you will remember. It's up to you. This is just I will leave it for a second or two for you to take a paragraph if you want to. Now, let's move to an example. Now, usually you have like correct the verb, write for example, write a question or write a negative, or give me, for example, another form of the verb. It's up to you. It's up to your, of course, someone who's going to write your exams the examples that will be given to you. This is just an easy or the simplest direct way of asking someone to activate their knowledge of that, tense. He has worked in UAE recently, and I underlined the place. So I'm going to ask a yes/no question for the whole sentence, and I'm going to ask a WH question only for the underlined word. Make a question, ask a yes/no question. This is the first question. Why is it easy? And I always say it's easy because I want you to believe that and do it. All you have to do is switch. You switch the subject and the verb place, so it's in a question form. So has he worked in UAE? Even if you have, now it's a pronoun, even if it's like, let's say the noun itself, like the boy or the boys or the teachers or whatever, at the end you can use the pronoun, it's easier for you, or you can use the same noun if you want, but all you have to do is switch. Now when you ask about UAE, you're going to use where, also you switch, and you complete the sentence into a question form. I will also leave this for a second if you want to take a photograph. Just an example. Moving on. Now there are some time expressions that will help you. Now when I give you a sentence and I say use the present perfect simple, it's easier for you. But sometimes you have like 5 sentences and they don't ask you to use the present perfect. They just say correct the verb. So you have to make sure it's the present perfect. Sometimes you have the feeling like it's a present perfect, the action that has happened in the past or that has happened and it's completed, but sometimes it's not clear. You don't know the exact time or it's not mentioned. So you want to make sure, and this is one of the importance rule in the present perfect. When you use it, these are the actions that have happened at some time in the past, but the exact time is not mentioned. So you have before or yet, yes, that's it. You have these time expressions that will help you. For example, for and since will have exact time, but sometimes you have yet, already, so far, ever, never. So you're not sure. If it's not the present perfect, if you have these time expressions, it's a present perfect. Now we have 2 distinct. You have to use time expressions with certain words, like for example for. When I say for, you have to use period of time, like for 2 weeks, you have to be exact. For a week, for 6 months, for an hour. But when it's since, it's a point of time, like since Sunday, since 3 o'clock, since yesterday, since last month. So be careful with these time expressions. You also have them in your grammar book. You will have all the list there, but like for example yet and already and so on. But if you want, you have to remember these 2 time expressions, for and since. Sometimes they ask you to choose between them. Moving on. Now in Unit 2 or Module 2, they are asking you to write a story. Now, maybe it seems like difficult for you or not easy, but if you follow I'm going to give you different hints. If you follow them, inshallah, will be easier for you. For example, when you write the events, it has to be in chronological order. Chronological order means order in time, how that, for example, story happened, starting from the beginning, and you have a middle and you have an end. So since you have chronological order, it means you have to use tenses. You have to use the past tenses since it's a story, so something that has happened in the past, and also the past progressive, because sometimes there are actions that took a long time or they continued happening in the past. Also, it's important for you to use time linkers like when or while, as soon as, and so on. So you're going to develop your story. Also, you have to use adverbs and adverbial phrases like suddenly or fortunately or in the end or to my surprise, because it's a story. You have to attract the reader. Also, you have to use adjectives. They will describe your feeling. I was surprised, I was amazed, or I was frightened or upset, whatever. And also you can use direct and indirect questions or speech. Like for example, you can say he mentioned, he said, and you have to report his own words. So you have to write exactly what I'm not saying it's like a play, but it's a story that I have to be with you. Like I have to feel the actions that have happened, and you have to describe it in that manner, so on. Now, moving on to the email. When you write an email to a friend, you're going to give that person news, like you have to tell that person about your new house. There are many techniques, but these are the ones that are followed in your book. You have to use standard grammar, spelling. You have to use explanation, like guess what, because it's a friendly email. You're talking to your friend. Direct questions. For example, you can also use like phrases that begin to begin and end the email. You can start with hi or hello. When you finish, you have to sign off with set phrases like, for example, your first name. You can say, see you later, don't forget to write to me, and so on. Now, to express your ability or obligation, you can use could or can or must or able to. Now, if you want to use can, it means you can do something and it's going to be in the present, like I can read now, I can write, I can ride, I can drive. If you say I could, you're talking about something in the past. I could walk like for 2 miles like 2 years ago, and now I can't, and so on. If it's an obligation, you use must. So when I ask you to use must, it means when you're asked to use must, it means you are obligated, you have to do something. You can express the present or the future, like I must be in class at 6 o'clock. Okay. Indirect questions. Now, indirect questions has been explained in the previous lessons, but I just put the phrases in front of you so it's easier for you to remember that they start with this phrase: could you tell me, can you tell me, do you know? These are the ones that are used in your book. Of course, there may be other like phrases, but this is the one that you're going to define in your book and in your exercises. Now, these are the phrases that they start the indirect questions. After that, that phrase, you have to form the question. You complete the question in a statement. So after that phrase, you find like a sentence form, not a question form. Okay, if you think about this, you will say, okay, where is the question? The question is in front of you. This is the question. Could you? Can you? Do you? So this is the question. What comes after is a sentence, okay? In a form of a sentence, but it's a question, of course. For example, can you tell me where the swimming pool is? As you can see here, where is it? You have a question word, but the swimming pool is a subject and you have a verb here. So it's a form of a sentence, but you can see it's a question because it starts with that phrase, can you tell me, which is indirect questions. Indirect question. So you're asking someone, can you tell me where the swimming pool is? This is a very important form. Do you know what time the gym opens? We don't have does here. We have the S with the verb, so be careful with that, okay? This is how you start the question with the phrase, and then you have the form of a statement. Okay, moving on. The comparative form, comparisons. Now you have two types of comparisons. You have the comparative, okay, which is going to be between two. I'm going to explain it now. Now, you have two nouns, okay, I'm comparing them, and I want to say that one of them is, then the other one. Now, you have two types of adjectives. You have one syllable and more than one syllable, or 2 or 3 syllables. Now, when you have a syllable like, for example, large, one part of the word, small, fast, high, all you have to do is put ER and then than and the other noun. For example, house A is bigger than house B. Okay, car A is faster than car B. Let's say cake A is smaller or larger than cake B. Okay, two nouns, and you're describing, and the adjective is like one syllable. Now, if you have 3 or more syllables, like for example syllables, like for example expensive or comfortable or important, it's very long. You cannot like add more words, so you are going to use more than. Also between two, you have than here, but you're going to say house A is more expensive than house B, or let's say watch A is more expensive than watch B, and so on. Okay, I'm going to leave this just for a second if you want to take it as a paragraph. Okay, now moving to the superlative form. When you're comparing using the superlative form, it means you are differentiating one subject and you're comparing to a group of objects. How do you do that? If it's one syllable, like for example large, small, fast, and high, you're going to say this is the largest size in the shop. If it's for example 3 or more, you're going to say house A is the most expensive house in the area. I'm going to leave this for a while. You add the EST and you have the superlative form. Moving. When you want to write an email to a friend. You're giving her news about your new house. For example, you can use phrases like, for example, I'm interested in what I want to know information about. Okay, if you want, for example, to list your questions here, first of all, then finally. If you, for example, want to ask her indirect questions, you're going to say, could you, do you know? You can end by asking, for example, let's say you say thank you for please reply very quickly or as soon as possible. So these are the phrases that you use. Okay, let's stop here. Now this is the second part, which is about writing to describe a place. You have 3 paragraphs. The opening paragraph is usually information about that place, the name, the location. Sometimes you write exactly some of the features of the size of that place. The second paragraph has 2 parts. The first part is going to be what can you see in that, a description, other features, special features about that place. And number 2, also you can write about what you can do there. Why is it important? What can you see? What can you do there? The closing part of that paragraph is usually interesting because you're giving a general comment. Sometimes you're describing how you feel about that place. It's an amazing experience, or you should visit that place, and so on. So this is just like some of the clues, not clues, some of the techniques that you can use to write about a place. I just going to leave it just for a second for you, so you can use that to help you or to guide you to write a paragraph about a place that you want to describe. Okay. Now, the present perfect simple. Now, these are the activities. We're going to start the actual activities. Now, you have 3 sentences, 3 questions, sentences or questions, and I want you to correct or to write the correct verb in brackets. Now, as you can see, the title has present perfect simple, but maybe you won't have that clue. In the sentence, you have like recently and yet a few times. So this may show you that this is the tense that you should use, which is the present perfect simple. Now I'm going to leave, I'm going to be quiet for a second, and then you can pause and you will see the answers now. 1, 2, 3. Now the first one, have been. Have goes with I. In be is the past participle of be is been. The second one, it's a question, and the verb regular verb, so you added ed. The third one, also a question, because you have you used have, and the past participle of eat is eaten. Now this is also to correct the compounds of some, any, no, and every. Now to be able to choose, you have to read the sentence. Is it a negative? Is it affirmative? Are you using thing? Is it a thing, or is it like a place or a person? For example, I'm going to just pause for a while, and then this is the answer. Number 1, something. Number 2, anywhere, and I chose anywhere here because number 1, it's negative and it's a place. You have go here. Now to rewrite the indirect questions, you have 2 questions, WH question and yes, no, WH question, a verb to be, and second one also WH question but with does. Now I put the indirect question for you, like can you tell me and do you know? All you have to do is complete, and I'm going to pause for a second, and these are the answers. Where your passport is, you do notice that we switched subject verb. And the second one, how much the sleeping bag costs, no does, and the S goes with the verb you have S. Okay. Number 3, activities about comparison. Now I'm going to let you just I want you to think about that. Very important to think about the comparison here. Is it between 2? Is it more than 2? And you think about the adjective. Is it 1 syllable or more than that? Are you going to use, for example, more or the or er? Sometimes you have than to help you, and sometimes you don't. Also, you have good here. I did not go through this. We have done that before in the lessons. If you go and search for the lesson in the channel, If you have more questions about that, you can go to the grammar reference in your book. You will find a list of irregular adjectives that you can study there. Now I'm going to leave just a second and then I'm going to show you the answer. Okay, starting now. Number 1, more interested. Dima is more interested in going shopping than in going to school. Number 2, Muhammad is as careful as his brother. And number 3, that was the best book, superlative. And the last one, also a superlative, the happiest person in the world. Now, it's very important for me to talk to you about the vocabulary. I did not explain the vocabulary. It's not about matching the word to the meaning, because if I do that, it's like memorizing. I want you to understand the word itself, and number 1, and number 2, how can you match that with the content, like the same sentence? Does it fit the meaning or not? So if you look at the words, they're all, you can have most of that. You can use equipment or ladder or helmet, but is it the same meaning? Is it correct to put that word here? All of them are nouns, and as you notice, I need a and an. I did not give you any clue here because I don't want you to think about, okay, she's given us a clue, but you have to complete the sentence to understand why did I choose that word. To reach that shelf. So to read that shelf, you need, what do you need? And number 2, you have on the plane to guide you. Okay, what is on the plane? Which word goes with that sentence? And number 3, dinner, and you have Amani, what she's doing. What is Amani doing? And number 4, Abdulaziz lives in an area, and that area is nice and quiet. So think about that when you choose the vocabulary question, or you choose the word. Think about the content itself. Okay, I'm going to give you a second and then we'll go to answer. Number 1, you need a ladder to reach that shelf. And number 2, how many passengers you have? 50. And number 3, what is Amani doing? She's preparing. And number 4, it is peaceful. That area is peaceful. Now we reached the end of our revision. I do hope that you benefited from our, let's say, a quick revision of that module 2, starting from B until the end, and module 3. Next time, inshallah, we're going to have module 4. If you have any questions, go back to the same video and repeat as much as you can, or go back to the videos before. Go back to your book, try to benefit from the grammar reference that you have, from the exercises in your activities, the roundup, and from the workbook, the exercises there as well. Try to use planners, organizers, try to put a table, or you have like different notebook, whatever fits your studying method, but be careful to use the book, and go back to the book whenever you have any questions. I wish you all the luck and see you inshallah next time. Thank you.